Hello, Facebook friends. I'm here with you today. Hello, Facebook friends. I'm Debra Morrison of Empowered Retirement, and I'm here with you today to talk. Sure, we're scared, but fear is not the problem. Wow, what is she talking about, you might say? Well, for the next few minutes, we're going to dissect that and hopefully bring you to a better positioning around any fears that you have. I might want to ask you to share this Facebook Live now with anyone that you may feel that would be helped by it. Maybe share it on your timeline because this is important information for all of us to gain and to internalize at a like now. So go ahead and we can spread the link. To credit my dear late friend, Dr. Seuss, and some of you have heard me credit her before, and yet her continuum, her help, if you will, to us is vast. She wrote an entire book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and another excellent book called Embracing Uncertainty. But I want to highlight her pain power continuum right now. And I'm going to hold this up. You'll have the opportunity to get this slide, but I'm going to hold it up right now in order for you to get what I'm saying. Now, believe me, if I was a genius on tech, like I wouldn't be a genius in financial planning, right? So there's some sense by which, if you'll forgive my lack of IT ability to put this on a slide, for example, I'll appreciate it. So this is Susan's power continuum. And I apologize. She had prefaced this by saying, do you know, if we're all out there in basically uncharted territory, everyone is out there in virtually unknown territory. And yet, few people are actually doing it, moving through that fear. Then we must conclude fear is not the problem. Actually, she deserves to be quoted exactly. Everybody feels fear when approaching something totally, yet so many are out there despite the fear. Then we must that fear is not the problem. Rather, how we hold that fear. So she has given us this exceptional tool, and it is an invitation for us to move from these emotions into these emotions of power. Now, the pain has us sometimes feeling that is a horrible, horrible. So she's inviting us to hold somewhat differently, taking power of ourselves. And this power is within ourselves. It has nothing to do with the abuse of powers or power over. It's power. So if we get ourselves anywhere off of this helpless dime as we find ourselves there, and just inch across, inch across. Yes, there may be some backsliding with circumstances. We find ourselves slipping a little bit, but as soon as we do, we can correct our course and move towards choice. Also, depression. If any of us are fighting depression, and certainly those waves come over us very, very swiftly and powerfully, I invite us to look at how we can move from depression into what I call this like intermediary zone opportunity and eventually excitement because we have slain this depressive dragon. And if in fact we've maybe stayed in our painful holding of our fear so long that we're paralyzed or we're paralyzed about some aspect of our life, let's go ahead and take some definitive action to move ourselves more towards our own power within. And I love the continuum that she gives us because it gives us hope that if we find ourselves in those emotions that are painful, we know, we know that there are other emotions that will boost our power. our internal power. And that's where the answers lie. Oprah and many mystics before her said, the answer is within. And our answers lie within. I'm going to share with you 5 basic fear. And we're going to tick them off and hopefully give you some fodder to free yourself from anything that's limiting you right now. We want to marshal our best selves at exactly times like these, challenging times, when we're needing to hold it together, we're needing to move forward and make progress. And then, incidentally, there are other eyes watching us, aren't there? Let's be examples for those whom are watching us. So, first factor of fear is that fear will never go away as long as we continue to grow as human beings. Now, that might seem like, oh gosh, I was kind of hoping she would get me out of this fear, right, and show me a different way. Well, there's not going to be a different way. If we're growing as human beings, we're constantly pushing some old boundaries, right? Those of our and those of our socialization or our family. So as we continue, we'll have different fears. Okay, I'm fearful. I got a pulse. It's a good, right? Hey, remember the childhood fear, boogeyman under the bed, whatever. Learning to drive. Who was so nervous about that? Like I was. Well, actually, I wasn't really nervous because we had driven tractors since we were knee high to a grasshopper. But I know that there's an awful lot of people, a lot of fears, and sometimes they're big laughter now because I was afraid, silly, you know. What do we do, or our nieces and nephews when they're afraid? Let's just take their hand where they're stopped, and we say, no, no, no. See this, this okay. Little flat, maybe shed some light on it, right? Let's do that same recognition of, if we can, and that fear is always going to be with us. Let's start from a powerful position. Number, the only way to get rid of it, which we don't want to do right now, go out and do that. Now, often this requires reverse some of our behaviors, right? Because maybe we've been avoiding some fearful things. Let's move towards our desired goals then, versus reading into any past habits or negative programming, if you will. And I ask you, if you could handle whatever your way, what fear? Nothing, right? Nothing. There's posts, tons of people have made money on that. Let's take it to heart. You can do it. Fact number 3 of fear, the only way to feel better about yourself is to go out and do it. So we'll get rid of the fear by doing it, and we'll raise our self-esteem by doing it, won't we? We're putting those old boundaries. We're at the fact that that held me back. Nonsense. It wasn't feeling it. I have felt significant fear. And then when I remembered for formula, boy, I just took a baby step towards that. And I'm telling you, one gives me the confidence to take the next step. So let more trust in our ability to handle whatever comes our way. You can do it. You are doing it. Now, conspicuously absent in any of this language is controlling any externalities, right? Controlling other people, controlling circumstances. This is an inside job. It's our job. It's each of our jobs to raise our self esteem and connect with that powerhouse within. It might be have gotten stomped down. Well, let's resurrect it. We're coming in, or Passover, we're coming into the Easter season. Let's resurrect our house and watch it give power to us to empower everyone around us. Now, it's not just me experiencing fear when in unfamiliar territory. It's just you experiencing fear when we're in an unprecedented pandemic. Everyone is in national, international uncharted. You aren't alone. So we encourage you to do working, which you're already doing for the most part. But if you feel you're setting to be an island, I invite you to open up that communication with a few trusted friends and or groups. You can listen silently if you don't feel like you can participate, but move yourself into the flow. Now, because you're an experienced certified financial planner, I'm going to talk about so when we can speak financial hope, perhaps, and me telling you the history of the stock market for an example, you can glean that there is hope, and we don't need to be as fearful about the unknown on the day-to-day stock market gyrations. So based upon the history of the stock market, this is another slide which you will be able to receive on our website at the end. But this is a look at the returns of the stock market. Now, what I'm going to do here is, and it's not so easy to see here, but this is a depiction of the return of investments from 1926 clear through the end of 2008. I didn't go ahead and take the time to update it for this presentation. You'll get the sense of this data regardless that it's 2 years old or 1.5 years old. This pink line, which is really difficult to see, measures inflation. So in other words, if we had a dollar back in 1920, it would cost $14 today due to inflation to buy what a dollar bought. Okay, and ultimately, what we want to imagine is we were around back in 26 and we had $5, right? $14 to buy the same lunch. If we were invested a dollar in Treasury bills, it would have followed this line, and it was $21. And we had invested a dollar in, it would have followed this line, this blue line. We have $142 in long government bonds, for example. Had we invested in the large stock market, it's this very heavy navy line, black line, and it would have 7,020. And finally, had we invested a dollar in small blue line, we would have had in 18 $20,145. 20,000. So it had to pay $14 bought then. Had we put a dollar in treasury bills, it would have a flat line here, almost like no gyration, no variation in the principal value. $21. Long-term government bonds, not much gyration in the market value, but it's on an upward slope. Yes, yes. $142 we'd have now. And look at this ebb and flow of markets. $7. Now you're saying that was 1926. Yeah, highlight, and I did so with a circle. Two particular time that we can most of us remember. October 19th, 1987, U.S. stock market, the Standard & Poor lost 28% in 4.5 hours. And then the debacle of 2008, 2009. This is the measurement. You can see this. It's pretty really small. And see it going up again, going up, down. And then 2008, 2009, up and up. What I want you to see is is, right? Stocks did even better. But when you're getting stocks and small stocks, look, the line is a little up and down, very much up and down. But rather than think I'm talking about 80 years and applicable, just this bottom axis. When you see the slide, you'll appreciate this. It's every 10 years. So if we take any 10-year period, it's like where the ruler is, and you're invested in stocks. You know, it went up, right? It went up. These 10 years, even the Depression, come out, bada bang, bada bang. Any 10-year period, a little bit. There's really 20 years. So it happens. My point is, rather than fleeing the stock market, because it has ultimately given us best historical returns of any asset class, let's just be sure then from here out, if we have adequately functional with our plans about ahead in the stock market for at least 5, and I like to say 7 years out, let's go ahead and shore that up. Do that work in our portfolios with financial advisors so that we don't have to dip into an asset whose price changes when we draft. See, that's what I don't want to have anybody selling. Have anybody selling into a down market in order to give them cash flow. And there's ways to avoid doing that. As a matter of fact, that I'm not diving into their retirement plans because we're really going to need them. However, instead of withdrawing from the retirement plans, we now have an exception in the 10% withdrawal penalty for persons withdrawing under age 59 and a half. I should say persons under age 59 and a half withdrawing from their IRA. It used to be that you'd pay a 10% penalty to having that amount taxed. They've waived that during this crisis. A person under age 59 and a half can go and have those monies and repay them back over the next 3 years. So my history with people paying is not so favorable. It's me a little dubious and a little tiny bit worried that some of our retirements will be sacrificed or significantly if we do this kind of raiding our retirement plans. I don't want to act like I don't understand the severity of the evil in our society and in our financial pictures and the uncertainty that some of you have with regard to your job and your employment and your level of pay. I feel that. I personally have felt that big time. What I am saying, however, is with the president's signing the CARES Act and so forth, there are, and the government issuing monies to people, there are various nuances that are going to buy us time. So you talk with your banker. Your mortgage may be able to receive a reprieve on being repaid back. Your college loans are stick out. You don't have to pay them. Car loans, other things are available. And you could borrow from your 401k at work. Now here's the caveat. The old rule was you could borrow the lesser of 50% or $50,000, which is smaller, right? And then you repay yourself back, and it's a pretty easy thing to repay yourself back because it's all roll deduction. They changed the rule now. They increased the level from 50,000 to 100,000. So you go ahead and borrow from your 401k, which I like a lot better because the repayment is payroll deduction, and then use that in the interim. But there's no need to rush to making huge financial decisions. I would like to see if we can all help each other standpoint, at least for a couple of 3 more weeks. Secondly, the change in the is instead of it being 50% of your account or 50,000, whichever is low, it's now up to 100,000, and that could be the higher amount of your 401k. The difficulty there is, let's say you have 80,000 in your 401k, God forbid you went in and borrowed the whole 80,000, market value of your 401k goes down to 70,000. There's going to be some consequences of it. that I want to throw out is that if you're getting furloughed or fired or laid, perhaps with laid off and furloughed, they're still changing those rules, but certainly, and you terminated the employment with that employer, you have to repay that loan, or that will be deemed taxable income on your tax return. So that would bite really big if you had to, pay taxes on that money just because you needed the money. So I don't think you're going to have the money to pay it back. A couple updates with regard to changes, but again, it's another pocket. Hear me talking about pockets, cargo pant pockets, options. So, our tidbit in terms of giving us hope, hoping us to hold our fear with more costs, right? Of the last 15 reasons, starting from 1929 through the latest one, in 11 of those 15, 73% returns were superseded those of the pre-recession values within 2 years, and in some of those years they were almost double. And I'll tell you one more fact, and that is the annual return in the year in which the recession started averaged about 7.8%. So the history has shown the stock market to be rather nimble, right? Rather an ebb and flow machine, and it does. We just don't know the rapidity with which it'll trough, peak, and trough and peak, or do smaller cycles. So I want to be the harbinger of hope here, and some of that fear, like, oh my God, we'll never get it back. Now, if you had to sell, yeah, you won't get it back. There's no recovery once you no longer hold shares. So that's the caveat. And finally, I'll throw out, and you may be thinking, why go through this change? Dr. Jeffers, why go through it? Why not just live in a livable state? And, oh yeah, I have, who cares? I've gotten all. The fifth fact about pushing through ours is actually less frightening than living with the underlying fear coming from that of helplessness. So many of us have had waves of feeling helpless during this pandemic. Channel those feelings because it's valuable. Let's channel that and those feelings, gestures, and action to us and to others. And if you're informed information, I invite you to share this page and with your groups. I will invite you also to go to our website, Empowered Retirement, Empowred, retirement, ETIREMENT.com/resources, and you'll get these slides and you'll be able to look at them in detail. Shoot us an email, call us with any question, and I want to take advantage of your time right to consider these new behaviors and consider the power that you can unleash towards a very, very new and exciting result. And I want to hear about that. So we're going to do Tuesday through Thursday, and I look forward to seeing you. Take care.